All right, and we're back for our next speaker. This guy's name is Christopher Lee Jones, brought to you by his own book, Falcon Heavy sponsor, Mars Mission 1, Surviving the Kessler Effect, where you can read about the Kessler Effect and how that may adversely affect all of our futures. A cliffhanger story of what may happen if we don't do what we know needs to be done. So check it out at his booth over here. So everyone, please give a warm welcome to Christopher Lee Jones.
Thank you, sir. You're very welcome. Appreciate it. Can I close this laptop?
Oh, yes.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for that nice welcome, and welcome to Kennedy Space Center. All of you people that haven't been here before, this is an awesome place. I cannot believe Carson. Where is he? Where are you, Carson? I can't believe you got this venue. This is like such a cool venue. Thank you very much. Give Carson some love. All right, everybody get a good lunch. That looks pretty good. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to do my little dog and pony show here, and then afterwards I'll be more than happy to take questions. So as you probably guessed, can I go backwards? That video, that screen's not supposed to be there. Thank you. How did that happen? Anyway, as you probably guessed by now, I'm Christopher Lee Jones. I'm author of Mars Mission 1, Surviving the Kessler Effect. Okay, I know it's kind of long, but there's a reason for that. How many people here have actually heard of Donald Kessler? Show of hands. Okay, and then how many people have heard of the Kessler Effect? About the same amount of people. Okay, so, all right, so we may be doing some education, which is awesome. You also may have noticed when you came in that there was two Cybertrucks out there that had like a deep space kind of, wrap on them. And one of them happens to have a rocket on the side of it. Did you guys see that one? All right, that's my Cybertruck, and I want to say give Raphael Teslatino a super big thanks. Is he here? You here, Raph? Thank you so much, Raph. That wrap would not be on the truck if it weren't for Raphael and Brian at A1 Custom Wraps in North Carolina. So thank you very much, Raphael. Put some love where it belongs. Oh, by the way, if you happen to see some footage of that Cybertruck at the Tesla rodeo, yeah, there's a truck that was just like mine. Well, no, it was mine actually, but somebody stole or borrowed it, and that wasn't me. Okay, so just so you know. Just, want to get that straight. All right, so now I'm going to go into a little bit about the Kessler Effect and why I am here on stage talking to you good people. 5 years ago, I was visiting the United States Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. How many people have been there? It's a freaking awesome place to go. And you got to make sure and go to the Redstone Arsenal and back. It's absolutely, is that the right name? I always call it the Redstone. It's actually the Red Rocket Arsenal. Anyway, it's out back behind the United States Space and Rocket Center, and they have a fantastic tour. And they actually have one of the pods of the ISS that was not delivered because of the Columbia crash. So it's actually a piece of what it would have been in space. You get to see it up close and personal. It's very cool. So 5 years ago, I was there. I had just seen Elon make a presentation at the IAC, which is the International Aeronautic Convention or Congress in Mexico City, and he had broken down his plan for how we're going to start moving people and equipment and supplies to Mars. And that was still in the back of my mind, being fairly well blown away by it. And then I went to the United States Space and Rocket Center, I was watching all that. In the meantime, I had seen a YouTube video that talked about the Kessler syndrome or the Kessler effect. And it suddenly, as I was leaving the Rocket Center, it suddenly hit me that, wait a minute, if we have people on Mars or on the Moon or in the International Space Station and the Kessler effect happens, they would be marooned there. They could never return. So I'm going to give you a real quick update about a real short definition of the Kessler effect. So let's see, was that right? Okay, so in 1978, Donald Kessler had a mathematical theory which talked about the behavior of bodies in low Earth orbit. And can you imagine writing a mathematical formula that describes bodies acting and interacting with each other in low Earth orbit? I mean, crazy. So he assigned the formula to the bodies that he was following, and it worked perfectly. So he went to a scientific symposium, and he released the information to his friendly scientists, and they all went running home to go prove that his formula was not right, and that it was wrong and it was flawed, and there's no way anybody could write a mathematical formula that would describe the behavior of bodies in low Earth orbit, of planets and debris.
Will you do me a big favor?
Sure.
We have an astronaut.
We have an astronaut.
We have an astronaut.
A real astronaut.
A real astronaut.
Wow.
Who's on a very short time window. Could we
Absolutely.
break you for a few minutes?
Absolutely. So I'll come back and I'll give you guys what the definition of the Kessler effect is, and we'll start right there.
Christopher is going to continue with his presentation, and it's really great stuff. We're going to go about 20 minutes of his presentation. We can do some question and answer in there. So let's put our hands together for Christopher Lee Jones. Come back up again.
Okay, so that's what happens when you get an astronaut involved. So as I was saying, I was giving you the reason that I am here today in front of you nice people is because I was leaving the the United States Space and Rocket Center, and I'd heard about the Kessler effect, and I saw Elon's presentation, and I was like, oh my God, people have to know about this. I have to get this message out. So it starts in 1978 when Donald Kessler revealed.
Sorry, just the clicker, if you need. There's the clicker right here.
Okay.
Just make a firm click, and it'll forward the window for you. Just want to make sure you had it. All right, great.
Great.
Please continue. Sorry.
No problem. Where was I? Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to me sitting at the corner, leaving United States Space and Rocket Center. I knew about the Kessler effect because I'd seen something on it on YouTube, and my mind was blown. I was like, I got to get this message out. So it starts back in 1978 when Donald Kessler revealed his mathematical theory to scientists at one of his symposiums that he used to go to, and he expected every single one of those scientists to come back to him laughing and going, dude, you missed this mathematical equation here, or your math isn't right here, or this doesn't work this way. Instead, they slowly started coming in going, dude, you nailed it. You got it. You hit it big time. So he was back at Houston, NASA, and all these reports started coming in that he'd come up with this new mathematical theory. No, it's not a theory anymore if people keep finding and getting the same results as you were getting. Now it's called a fact. So the Kessler effect was no longer a theory, it was now a fact. And it's kind of a funny story. Donald and I have fortunately been able to become very good friends. But he told me that it was kind of funny how it all came down. He was in his boss's office, but he'd been called into his boss's office because there was so much talk about this Kessler effect all over NASA, it was really pissing his boss off. And he's like, dude, if I hear any more about this stupid Kessler effect crap, I'm gonna fire you. And the phone rings, his boss picks it up and says, hello, and the answer is, yeah, this is Department of Defense. Is there a Donald Kessler there? And that was the end of that. His boss said, all right, fine, forget it. You're going to have your own department. It's going to be called the Orbital Debris Department, and you're going to do all of your orbital debris work away from me. But you get your own off. You're a director now. So he went from like a relative everyday employee to being a director. So can you forward the slide? So this is Donald. I've had the good fortune of getting to know him very well, and we've become good friends now. So he came up with this no longer a theory, and now a fact. It's now proven. And let's see. Okay, so okay, I already said that. Okay. Where did I put the definition? Anyway, the definition of the Kessler effect is when there's enough debris in low Earth orbit that it gets to a certain level and it suddenly crosses a threshold, and there's enough there's enough debris that's hitting the existing satellites in low Earth orbit that they break up and they create more debris. And as each of the satellites create more debris, they hit more satellites, creating more debris, and it slowly circles the world. This is now my friend Donald in front of that mysterious truck. Oh, great. Okay, so this is the Department of Orbital Debris that Donald was made a director of in 1978. Can we get the next slide? Great. All right. So this is kind of what it would look like. You have some of those are actual satellites currently in orbit, and some of it is debris. And as it continues, the chain reaction continues, and you could imagine how it's like your screen would completely turn fuzzy if you're watching it, on a laptop. It turn fuzzy, and then you go completely white because there's so much debris you wouldn't even be able to see to the Earth. So the point being is, once the Kessler effect takes place, you could no longer leave the Earth or return to the Earth. The International Space Station would be completely destroyed. Even if they were able to do a PDAM maneuver, which is called it's an emergency maneuver that NASA has the ISS do in cases where they have debris heading their direction. Okay. So I started doing research on anything I could possibly do when I found out that I had to get the word out to people about the Kessler effect and how dangerous it could be to us, to our astronauts, to the ISS, and to any possible future of leaving the Earth and going to space or returning from the space back to Mother Earth again. I just returned not too long ago from the IAC, the International Aeronautic Congress, that was held in Milan, Italy this year. And the reason I went there was because the subject for the entire convention, the entire 17,000 attendees, was space sustainability. So it's obviously an issue for everybody. Everybody was there. JAXA, there was there. Norwegian Space Command was there, Italy was there, ESA was there, NASA was there, SpaceX was there. They're all, now everybody's job is to find out how to make space sustainable. Guess what? I just heard that the convention that's being held in Sydney, Australia is going to be on the same exact subject. Same subject 2 years in a row. So what does that tell you? It's kind of important. So it's my job to find out. It's my job to get educated and stay educated about this and the situation. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. There's an issue that we have that we haven't really discussed. I haven't discussed, but as every rocket leaves the launch pad and goes into space, they leave debris behind. Could be a nut, could be the second stage separates from the first stage, or whatever, but they always leave a little bit of debris. So every single launch that we have is leaving more space debris behind. I've seen quotes from different professionals in the space industry, everything from, oh, the space, the Kessler syndrome is not going to happen for 100 years. We're not there. And yet I've heard also quotes from NASA themselves that said, yes, this Kessler syndrome has started, but it's really slow. So we need to figure out how to clean up space. That's our subject for now. And then I've heard other people say, well, it's kind of started, but we don't really think it's going to be a problem for another 50 to maybe 70 years. So there's a lot of different opinions on exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. When I spoke to some of these professionals, I'm going to lose my paper. When I spoke to some of these professionals in the industry, I said, what numbers are you using for your projections? And they said, well, we're using the numbers of what we launched last year. And I just said back to him, well, our launch cadence this year is more than it was last year. And next year, our launch cadence will be more than the next year. So it's just we're gonna continue with every launch creating more and more debris. We can't help it. So there's some really bad things that happen when the Kessler effect takes place. I'm not gonna go into all of them. They're in the book if you want to hear. I mean, the more research I did, the more I absolutely could not believe. Okay, so in effect, from all the different professionals that I spoke to and I've talked to at the different conventions that I've gone to, they all disagree. They all have different feelings as to when it's going to happen, how fast it's happening, but they all agree it's going to happen. And we really, really, really badly need to avoid it from happening. So that's what they all completely agree about. My book is, I used to call it factual fiction, because it's a fictitious story that's entertaining. It's a cliffhanger, but it's based on real-world data, real-world equipment. Everything that's used on the surface of Mars is equipment that we have right now. And as we move forward, the more I do my research, the more I find out that my book is less and less fiction and more fact. It's just weird how it worked out, but the stuff that I put in the book is what I'm seeing happening on a daily basis. So, like I said, the professionals all agree we really need badly to avoid the Kessler effect from happening. And that's what my book is about, that's what I'm about, and that's the message that I'm carrying to the rest of the world, is that we cannot allow the Kessler effect to happen. Thank you for your time, and I'll take questions if you have any. Yes, sir.
Mitigation efforts. What kind of mitigation efforts are there?
What I've seen so far is everybody's got this idea of sending a rocket up with a robot on it that's got grasping arms, and then it'll, inflate a parachute or something and bring down one piece of debris. That would be effective for large stuff like rocket boosters that we have in orbit. It will bring some of the big stuff down, which is important because the big stuff, it breaks up on its own, and it's also a target for the smaller debris. So it's, that will be effective getting the big stuff down, but we have more than 1 million pieces of debris at less than 10 centimeters. Anybody know what 10 centimeters is about? It's about the size of a grapefruit, basically. So we have a big job ahead of us. I've talked to, last year at the IAC, I spoke to everybody I possibly could. I only heard of maybe one idea that might have some possibility, but they haven't even started going into it. It's just their thought process. So thanks for your question. Yes. Actually, that's a good question. Thank you very much. That's actually an agreement that the United States and NASA and ESA, JAXA, all the other agencies have formed and agreed that any satellites they send into low Earth orbit has an end-of-life scenario. So when it is no longer effective, it will deorbit itself. So we're at least working that way. As far as the amount of debris, there's like tools out there. There's, I mean, it's a big variety of stuff. It really doesn't matter because at orbital speeds, which is 17,500 miles an hour, which is faster than a rifle, bullet, 17,500 miles an hour, a BB would go right through the International Space Station out the other side before they even knew it. So the impact speeds, amount of energy at that kind of speed is just absolutely mind-blowing. So it really, in a strange way, it doesn't really matter what the thing is that's up there and it's debris because it's the speed that's the problem. Any more questions? Sure.
So there seems to be a lot of parallels between this and climate change, where there's this idea of generationally maybe just kind of kicking it down
Yeah.
the road. Are you seeing that there? I mean, there definitely seems to be
Absolutely.
that, like from an, they're like, it's in space, it doesn't. It's like somebody in Ohio saying, oh, well, coastal flooding doesn't bother me, I'm not going to think about it. So it's kind of this out of sight, out of mind. But we're starting to see climate change affect more and more people, so a total addressable market, TAM, so to speak.
Absolutely.
At what point do we start noticing an effect on our lives as terrestrial beings?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. Yes, in the first instance, you're asking about climate change. We're starting to notice it now. We've been pumping carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, whatever, warming gases into the atmosphere since the 1850s. And now we realize that maybe that's not such a good idea. I remember growing up as a kid, we would see, people throw garbage, tires, whatever, into the ocean, and they would say, oh, don't worry about it, the ocean's too big, we can't pollute it. Well, that didn't work very well. There's more plastic in the ocean, I think, than there is on our dinner tables.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was,
Is there like a critical mass where there'll be no ignoring it?
Yeah, the critical mass is, according to what I've already heard, is that the critical mass is already across the threshold. But at what speed is it? Because it's directly related to how much stuff, how much satellites and whatnot there is that's out there. And we know for a fact that it's not a good idea to put more debris out there. We've done ASAT missiles to shoot down weather satellites just to see if we could do it. The United States has done it a couple of times. The last one was Russia in 2021 or 2022. And then I think the one previous to that was India. And it's just like saying, oh, well, I'm a big boy too, let me shoot my satellite down. And come on, guys, we don't need to do this.
Isn't that turning a cannonball into a shotgun shell?
Correct.
Where you're taking one kind of large object and turning it into 10,000 smaller objects that cover a much wider area.
Exactly.
And are still equally as lethal because they're traveling 17,000 miles an hour?
Yeah.
So it's like it probably wasn't the best idea to do that.
Pretty bad idea. Yeah. Well, the United States didn't help with the situation any in 1960-ish time frame. They sent like 3 million needles into low Earth orbit, and then blew up the rocket that was carrying them just to see if they could reflect a radio signal off of the needles. The bad news is it worked. The bad news is they're still up there. They didn't come back. And not only did that, the Air Force expected the needles to spread around the Earth and just slowly deorbit themselves. And they've done the exact opposite. They've come back together, and they've become one big mass. Now, what do you think would make that possibly happen?
Gravity?
I'm thinking static charge.
Oh, okay.
They're moving at super high speeds. They're rubbing against each other, going around the Earth. I'm thinking static charge, that are making a charge and are being attracted to each other. There's not any humidity in low Earth orbit, like none. So, you know, it's a really good possibility that static charge could be doing that.
Okay, great. Well, we have about 5 minutes, probably enough room, a couple more for questions. We have one in the back there. Yeah. Okay.
Can you come up? I can't hear you.
Yeah. Can we get the stage mics on? Because we're using the stage mics.
In 2022, 2021.
Right.
That actually was the plot point, the initial MacGuffin, if you will, of the
Your
Gravity,
mic's working now.
of the movie Gravity in 2013. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're familiar with that, given the research you've done. So my question for you is, nothing against books. Books are great. Oh, this is working. But a lot of people don't read, don't have time to. I don't have time to. I love books. I read them when I was a kid. I don't have time as an adult. Have you thought about, or has anyone approached you about you making a movie? I mean, Gravity's already been done. Phenomenal movie. If you haven't seen Gravity, watch the movie. It's wild. Right. But for something that's not as sensational or dramatic, but more educational, like your book sounds like it is, have you thought about doing a movie adaptation of your book?
Actually, I wrote the book with the process, or the thought process in my mind is that this is going to be a movie. So that's, I described everything as though you're watching it in a movie theater. And that's really the best way to get the message out. By the way, the movie Gravity was not about the Kessler effect. That was just debris. That was just a one shot. Somebody blew up a satellite and it's heading your direction, get the hell out of there. That's all that was. It was not the Kessler effect. The Kessler effect is a lot worse. And it will not clean itself up for probably hundreds of years. So that means we will no longer be able to go to the stars. We'll no longer be able to go to the moon. We will no longer be able to challenge ourselves to go to Mars. And the ISS will be completely destroyed. So this is something we cannot let happen. But it's now, Donald Kessler was proven correct in 1978. So his theory is not a theory, it's now a fact. And we cannot let this happen. So that's my message. And please carry it on. Thank you. Oh, are there any more questions? Any more questions?
Yeah, we have time for one or two more. In the back? You got? What's
the model predicting the equal distribution of the equatorial areas to...
Can you start over, please?
Considering the model of Kessler effect.
What is the model?
Is the model actually predicting the equal distribution of the equatorial areas of the debris toward the polar areas?
Yeah, I have no idea. All I know is that if the Kessler effect happens, it will eventually completely, as you can see here, it'll completely surround the globe 100%, and we'll no longer even be able to get a radio signal in or out. At least that's my theory. The Kessler theory is or the Kessler syndrome is we'll no longer be able to leave the Earth or return from outer space back to Earth. So we will lose space, in effect. I haven't even looked at his modeling. I haven't looked at any of the numbers. I don't really care. What I care about is these other people have proven it to be correct for me, because there's no way I could figure out what he's talking about, by looking at his mathematical equations. So.
We have time for one more. Is there any question? Up front, you have young lady.
Are we currently contending with creating a pathway through debris that is currently in orbit now? That as we're doing the rocket launches currently, are we trying to get away from the debris at the current moment?
What they do right now is they have an office of debris. I can't remember the name of the office. NASA has an office that all they do is follow the debris. They track every little bit. They track millions and millions of pieces of debris constantly. So when they know they have a clear window for a launch, they give the green light that they can make it through, and probably not get hit. But it's, you know, they're a BB moving at 20,000 miles an hour your direction, you're in trouble, and it doesn't take a baseball bat, you know. So it's no. Well, that's the problem is that right now there's no ability for mitigation because they're all moving so fast, you know, and they're moving different directions. So some are going this way, some are going that way, some are going this way. So you know, it's if you've ever been a scuba diver or jump out of a plane, you suddenly realize you have surfaces below your feet. We're used to being on a single plane here on the Earth. We have bottoms, you know, sky, left, right, front, back. But when you're a scuba diver, you look down and you now have a whole new surface of, you know, potential things to look at below your feet as well. So now you have 360 degrees in all directions that debris could be flying. So scuba diving for me, it's a very good, you know, correlation. It gives you the feel of the, you know, the different, when you have space like that all the way around you, it's just different. But right now, nobody has a plan. Nobody has a real, you know, I've seen people that said, oh, well, we're going to send up a rocket and we're going to, you know, have these little drones go out and grab the pieces of debris and deorbit themselves. And I'm like, so exactly how does that work? And they're like, well, it's just a thought. So right, you know, I mean, that's why I got so freaked out when I found out about the Kessler effect and what we could be possibly doing to ourselves just because we can't keep from polluting outer space or low Earth orbit. Yes, sir.
And then this will be the last question, everyone. But yeah, please, Duani.
Okay, so the question was, you're talking about they meaning debris. We can see the clip that's up right now. We don't have a way to show it to you with what we have here today. But no, the answer is absolutely not. They're moving. The debris is moving. If you can imagine what chaos would be like, that's, you know, like maybe driving. Where would I see that? Where they're driving through. In some place in Asia, and everybody drives every which different direction, and somehow they don't hit each other. But, where is that?
China has traffic
China?
like that, yeah.
But I mean, if you can imagine chaos, there's no means, there's no logic, there's no conformity. It's complete chaos. Yes, sir. That's my theory, is that, you know, the stuff is rubbing against itself and creating a magnetic charge. That's fiction, but yet to be proven. I mean, it's possible. So that's fiction in my book, but. There is, in Australia, there's I don't know if it's the Australian government, Australian Space Agency, but they have figured out that they can hit the debris with a laser beam, and it will slow it down slowly. They'll have to, every 90 minutes, your debris basically comes back around the Earth, and they re-hit it each time it comes by, and it slows it, slows it, and slows it. Eventually, it gets below the 17,500 mile an hour requirement to stay in orbit, and they will deorbit themselves. But I mean, that's, to me, sounds like better than nothing, right?
Yeah, great. Well, that's all the
Thanks,
time
guys.
we have. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for Harvey Jones.
Please pass it on. Talk to your senators and congressmen.